Hello and welcome back to Hexgrid Hangouts. This week I'm joined by fellow Starfinder homebrew podcaster Cameron from the Sinister Shenanigans in Space podcast.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. Longtime listeners will remember Cameron from the crossover episode we did with Sinister Shenanigans and the Cosmopunk podcast. Brought you in to talk a fair bit about your podcast. I've been wanting to get you and possibly your GM Jeff to come hang out and talk about your podcast, which I feel like at this point I'm the adoring fan from Oblivion about it. it's real good, folks. So we are going to be talking about the Evolutionist Playtest later, but Cameron, why don't you tell the folks about your wonderful pod?
So I am a player on the Sinister Shenanigans in Space podcast. We, the GM Jeff, as Don mentioned, he obviously spins the story for us, and then there's 6 of us players, and we just have a lot of fun, basically. It was an informal evil campaign, like it wasn't required, but it's more or less an evil campaign. But we try not to do the cringy evil. It's more personal vendetta type stuff. So we basically just have a ton of fun with it.
And I think it's realistic the way you guys approach the evil stuff. Like, it's not like okay, you guys had one character that was mustache twirling evil, but you took care of him.
Yeah.
And but it is good, like that personal vendetta stuff. Like, I feel invested in some of the terrible things some of your crew does, while shaking my head and messaging you at 4 a.m. of my reactions about it. It's still like an endearing story throughout. So we were talking a bit about it before. You played levels 1 through 4 offline, and then you guys didn't really start podcasting till you were established at level 5 kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. We threw the idea around in the beginning, but we never made it happen. And then about 4 or 5, somewhere in there, we finally committed to podcasting it.
And so there's 7 of you total, 6 in the GM. Mm-hmm. That's a full table.
Yeah, it is.
But you guys all do a very good job of everyone has a distinct voice, which I love. There's some podcasts, and I'm not here to denigrate them, but they're doing their best. But some groups they're all hometown friends, and they all have the same exact voice. And so it's difficult to kind of parse out what character versus what player. But you guys, each of you, have a very distinctive kind of presence about you. And it's I never feel like I have to backtrack. No, they said this, so it's all very good. So kind of an evil campaign. You guys are homebrew. You want to talk a little bit about the universe world that Jeff has created?
Oh man! So we wrapped up our Pathfinder game, and we took a hiatus for probably a year or more, and Jeff, he just went to town. Astrophysics, astronomy, everything. He built the cluster, because it's a full star cluster. I mean, he didn't map out everything in the star cluster, but he built an entire star cluster, and it's the amount of effort he put into it is astonishing. Some of the lore tidbits that he drops, or he has we have not a rule book, but I mean, we've got a dossier of all the stuff that your character could know type of thing, and some of the lore in it is phenomenal. He's put so much time into it. He had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely comes through, and I've seen a couple of the Reddit posts of him sharing here it is. I'm holy crap, I like playing in the established thing, partly because I'm lazy, partly because I'm not that confident in my own creation. But then I see what Jeff is spinning, and you have this star cluster, and you have distinct homebrew races. I've made up a couple homebrew things. Listeners will remember the ant people I made. But can you talk a little bit about some of the homebrew species and cultures that I mean, you kind of are exploring it while Jeff is like parsing it out. So I feel like saying it's just Jeff doing it gives a little bit of a disservice to you guys as your characters brush up against it. Like every bit of their culture is kind of reflected in how you all perceive them.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, we're definitely it's collaborative storytelling, so it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But the homebrew races, we actually have Ethan, one of our other players, is playing one of the homebrew races, Caber, Kabre, and Jeff is kind of, I believe his catchphrase for it is like colorful folk, and it's really an anything goes type of situation. Um, like horns, bright skin, hair that changes colors, or there's an alternate racial that you're just a dull gray. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a native or an instinctive magic type of race that's just kind of like a full grown gnome with a lot more variation. And yes, that's what Ethan's playing, Callius, the
Yep.
Caber. And then the other two are the Gekarok, which is like a frog people, which there is now an established frog people race, but or
Yep.
two even, but that's at the time there
That's
wasn't. And then the third one that he came up with was the Malorian, and it's like an avian race, which
yeah.
there are a couple of already, but I mean, he made it for the world that they're on, and it really fits. So those are the homebrew races that Jeff has brainstormed, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're all pretty well established. Like the background lore on a lot of them is really cool. Which I mean, that's the reason Ethan went for the Caber because it was so cool.
Yeah. Right on. And so one of the great things about your pod that I just gobble up is how like distinctive each of the characters like have their own thing. So we have Callie is the Caber. You play Spathane.
Mm-hmm.
We have you have I say we. I've invested a lot of time in listening. I've been catching up. So you have Raxolite, tiny plant guy. We got a drow, got a dwarf. Who am I forgetting? I think I'm forgetting Ghost.
The operative android.
Yeah, Android. Yeah. So like it's great to have like not only I love it when a party is consisted of these different races that have not only like different cultural backgrounds, but like you have the tiny guy that has to occasionally get around places.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your character, the Spathane, who is a living swarm of insects. The Drow have like boatloads of their own baggage that that he does a great job of bringing to life. Uh, I think you guys made a couple cracks recent episode about the dwarf. Oh, I don't want to spoil. So yeah, something just happened this past week that the dwarf did that just made me cackle this morning. Um, oh, and that's another thing to say about your podcast. Like, I love structure. Okay, I like structure. My podcast, we have a bit of a severe time constraint, so I need to get in, get the people ready. I need to do the wrap up so we can get into the action as quick as possible because of the various time schedules
Mm-hmm.
we're dealing with here. What your podcast, well, uh, what your podcast brings is like a very lived-in session feel. Like your episodes never go shorter than 2 hours. Infrequently, 4 hours and up. But like for me, who loves to binge shows and junk food, like it's my binge to catch up has been like, I feel like I've been listening for 6 hours in my shift. Then I look, I'm like, oh, I'm only two more episodes in. So can you tell me a little bit about your guys' session setup, like what that's all about?
Yeah, so I mean, when we first started playing, it was, you go over to someone's house and we'd sit there for 3 or 4 hours and just have fun,
Mm.
or start earlier and bring a meal, or occasionally you start later, scheduling conflicts. And so when we all ended up moving away, we took it online, obviously, and we just kept the 4 hour block basically, and we
Mm-hmm.
just have a ball with it. Um, we did debate cutting them shorter, but we figured it. It just we felt like we could do more, so we should type of thing. Like
Yeah.
it's a media that does well with any length, really. So longer isn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily a problem because it's like almost an audiobook format. So
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Because yeah, I'm also a big audiobook guy. So
right.
yeah, you're like in these people's worlds. Like sometimes my group, I'll be like, okay, let me just push you onto the next scene. Let me push you like
Hmm.
instead of spending 4 days in the drift. How about I'll ask everyone, does everyone have anything pressing? No. Okay. Star Wars screen wipe. You guys have landed at Absalom Station. Let's keep it moving. But you guys, I mean, your crew gets up to all types of stuff.
Right.
So that
Shenanigans.
that lived, yeah, if you will. Uh, just I think back to some of the inter-party strife that your crew deals with. That I feel like mine could start. Like I feel like things bubble. I feel personalities, character personalities, like rubbing up against each other in certain ways. And then when I hear like I can start to see a tinderbox, my mind flashes to some of the stuff your show got up to, and I'm like, please, for the love of God, be half as entertaining as what you guys did. But I won't give any spoilers. Like everyone should get on after this episode. Go find Sinister Shenanigans in Space wherever you get podcasts and just start it. It's a damn good binge.
Well, thank you.
Like yeah, like it's nothing at all like Lord of the Rings. But I look up and I have like I don't have like I literally have a Gandalf action figure I look at and I feel like this is that epic kind of storytelling where you know you guys are going to be in an elevator for a few minutes and we're going to feel those few minutes as you all debate with each other and it's just
Yeah.
very lived in feeling. So one of the perks of you guys playing 4 levels, getting into the character, getting developing that rapport with each other. Like episode 1, like there's no like, why would I adventure with you? Why would I go anywhere with you? It's like, I hate you.
Hmm.
Why am I still with you? Why don't you heal me first?
Yeah.
Kind of things.
uh,
I love it so much. So, another aspect of your show is, and we've talked about it a bit before. While you are evil characters, and some of the things you get up to are, um, look, if I said some of the things they do that happened out of context, it sounds reprehensible and
oh
deplorable
yeah.
even, and they are. But also throughout your 48 episodes, you guys are killing it with the lengths. Mean like you're well over 100
Oh yeah.
hours of content out there, and it's so good. But one of the things I like and endear and have kind of tried to take away from as a lesson is very little like adult language. You want to talk a little bit about, because we've talked about it before, how like not a whole lot of swears. It's not a very it's a dark but not very vulgar, which I've liked.
Yeah, we quotes, we keep it clean. End quotes. Cuz it's definitely not a PG podcast.
No,
But
it's really not.
yeah, it's just there are a couple of us which do use profanity and there are a couple of us which do not. And when we
Mm-hmm.
first sat down years and years ago, we all of that was at the table, and the people that did use it did, and the ones that didn't. And then over time, almost as a respect thing, uh, the people that did just kind of stopped. And at this point, it's almost like a how can you tell the story and have that impact without
Mm-hmm.
using the terms type of thing. And so we feel like it's or I feel like, not necessarily we, but I feel like it pushes us to have a better vocabulary, even just
Yeah.
tack it. The person that plays Draystar, he's a librarian. I mean, he throws out a word, and we're like, sorry, pause, let me look that up.
Yep.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing, especially in an evil campaign, to be clean quotes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's our personalities, and we just have fun with it, and it just kind of went to the wayside, and no one ever thought about it until it got brought up, and then we're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And I know I bring it up a fair bit because due to the way my dumb brain works, like I'm a little bit into my 30s. I slowly the need for the constant swearing has kind of diminished, but like after listening to you guys, like it's become like a bit of a respect thing. Like I don't know who falls where in the show. We in the crossover, your player Skylar um, quickly coined a term that my party won't let go of. Like it's that thing where someone tells a joke and like the joke was so good, the punchline was so good, but the punchline's just one word,
Right.
and like to this day, like it's rare, and for long-time listeners, the word I'm referring to, but won't say here. It's just become like and that's one of the things about the crossover I love so much. Like it lives on because my
Right.
players won't let the word drop.
A lasting impact.
Yeah, it's great. Just like you say in quotes, clean. It's quote unquote great, and so so I can tell like Skylar's not one to shy away from. But then like as I'm listening to it, and I brought it up just in passing in our conversations, and like, oh, you know what? You're right. I don't need to. It's I'm a smart person.
Yeah.
Ostensibly.
Yeah, we don't.
Like,
when I talk about it, like I never mean it as like anyone that uses it is dumb or anything like that.
yeah,
It's always just a we challenged ourselves type of thing.
exactly. And as I'm listening, like I feel like that not burden of challenge, but that opportunity of challenge. Like, yes, I'm a storyteller. I'm not George Carlin. Not that George Carlin, if you got rid of George Carlin's swears, he would be any less of a dynamo. But like, I don't need the shock of certain words that I use to like punctuate. Like your show is quite effective even without it. So it's just a fun thing to like. I would when I tell people, and I tell people often to listen to your podcast. Like, first off, they're not great people. Second of all. it's almost family acceptable.
Yeah.
But like that almost once again is like carrying very, very heavy quotation
Right.
marks.
A huge asterisk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a little bit more about the show. Your role, you play Thanatos. You guys are up to level 13?
15. Just hit it.
15. Oh, grats.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys, not only you've had this long to play, you guys are playing at such a high level. For me, who like this my players are around 6th level right now, so I'm very confident and competent and comfortable in this area. But then I get to hear your guys' adventures and your high level antics, like inform me on certain tactics. Like I'm very much a sponge and a cheat, in that like I'm not going to just rip off your characters and just throw them at my people because. I'd just rather have a crossover where you beat up them up.
I was going to say I'd be flattered, but that works too.
Yeah, but then like I hear like certain like your Technomancer has a kind of a specific build that I like. The Witch Warpers you have, the Envoy, like you're playing at such a high level that it's like inspiration for me of like different tactics to use. So like how are you playing? How do you feel playing at this level?
It's a very interesting situation, I guess, because Jeff can literally come up with a problem and put it on the table, and it's not a like I need to give you a solution type of thing. It's literally like you're at the point in the game that you'll figure it out. Period.
Yeah.
And he a lot of the time fully expects it. He'll come up with a potential out, and we never take it. and so he just quit coming up with them basically. And
Yeah.
so it's really just uh, what will they do type of thing, and we surprise him as much as we surprise each other and listeners too. So
Yeah.
it's a very fun, playing the whole game is very fun. Like getting to go through the levels and whatnot. But when you're at high level, like we are, I mean, I get a text and Jeff's like, "What do you think you guys will do?" And I'm like, well, here's some options. We'll see. Like, because you're
Yeah.
just at that point in the game where everything is an option.
Yeah. Yeah. You have so many tools at your disposal. Your class abilities at this point, uh, it, like Jeff would have to like pour over all of them and like try and find that loophole of things you don't have things for. But then the size of your party makes it so like
Hmm.
if one of your party's taken out for whatever reason in whatever capacity, like everyone else has all these contingencies, and it just feels like such a well-oiled machine at this level
Hmm.
that instead of like being terribly afraid and filled with anxiety about approaching those levels, like no, this is how you do it. Like they're going to wreck encounters, they're going to almost one shot a boss, they're going to use playtest classes and completely decimate encounters, and that's just, I mean, that's the role we as GMs play, and it sounds like you have GM experience as well. So like we're all, it's fun, its own kind of fun to have your plans, have your foes, and then just have your overly prepared, well practiced team of commandos
Yeah.
come and just stomp through your well laid plans.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're specifically referencing a one shot we did, and that happened.
Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, high level play is a lot of
love it.
fun.
And you mentioned, we were talking before about it, and you were saying how like it wasn't, because I recently did a level 12 one shot for some folks, and I think I handled myself well. But like before, I felt you out a little bit, like hey, here's this and this, and and you brought up a point when we were talking about it, how because you eased into this high level stuff, it wasn't anything really. It was just like another level,
Hmm.
another day. Uh, Cannonballing into high level play when I'm used to low level to early mid level was its own kind of culture shock, and that just reminded me like an aspect like you bring to the table. Uh, every party, every production has their roles. GMs deal with what they deal with, the maps, the encounters, and all that. But you've kind of adopted this, and I mean this in the excuse me, and I mean this in the nicest light. You kind of play the role as a rules lawyer in your group.
Yeah. As I mentioned, we first started years and years ago, and even then,
Mm-hmm.
Jeff wanted to come up with his own setting, and he did. And so while he was tackling that, everyone else kind of had their own jobs, and I picked up the rules, which I mean, everyone learned them, but I was the one that learned them the best. And so it's just kind of been my role is, hey, this is how that works, but I mean, do you, your story here.
Yeah,
So just yeah, I just kind of I'm the refresher type of thing, or
yeah,
so it's just kind of the role that uh, I've picked up, and it's kind of worked for our group. I feel like, and I mean, it's not for everyone, because certainly there are GMs that wouldn't want their toes stepped on type of thing, but
yeah.
Jeff mostly enjoys it, appreciates it because it lightens the load on him. Like he doesn't have to go look up the
Exactly.
chase rules. He's like, "Hey
Yep.
Cam, read these," and
Yep.
we're good to go.
Oh, so will you get like little like I guess production notes like, "Hey Cam, I need you to read up on these three mechanics or these three subsystems," kind of thing? Do you get like like? And I know you're experienced enough to not like metagame, but do you get advanced warning on certain things?
Yeah, yeah. There
Nice.
are little things like that, like, well, I can't read this text because it's a spoiler, but
Oh.
Jeff sent me a text. What's the play for blah blah blah? Because he's not super sure on the rules to solve that problem type of thing.
Hmm.
Not to go back to the like present a problem and we'll solve it type of thing we talked about a
Sure.
minute ago, but he'll often ask like, what's this do? What's this do? Not that you're going to see it anytime soon, winky face. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep. Very cool. And it's a nice like so you've been playing for years. How long have you been playing together and like what brought you all together if you don't mind
Man,
going into the Wayback Machine?
so I believe it was junior year of college. So that would be 2015, I believe.
Mhm.
So 6 years now. And what brought us
Wow.
together, I mean, we went to college together, most of us. And Ethan, Matt, myself, and Jeff were the first of us that started playing. And we kind of picked people up as we went. Lost some people, gained
Mhm.
some new people. You know how it goes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Jeff came to us one day and was like, "Hey guys, this is uh, this is the line that you don't cross. I want to cross it. Let's play Dungeons and Dragons." And we were all, "No, we can't do that. We're nerds, but we're not that kind of nerd."
Right? I've had that exact conversation
Yep.
where like it's that like there's that stigma still like not even it's not even that hard of a
Uh huh.
line especially but it's still a line where like oh I'm committing like I can quote Clerks movie, Star Wars, Star
Right.
Trek, Lord of the Rings, I know alien languages,
Right.
but like but there was always still like yeah but
Right.
I'm not one of
Yeah.
those. So that's awesome that you had
Yeah.
that had a little sit
Yeah.
down.
No, we did it. I mean, it's when you're throwing dice, you're another level. Like that's what we
Yeah.
legitimately thought, and we held
Hmm.
off for a week or two, and then um,
Couldn't look Jeff in the eye for a few days. I get it.
yeah, I mean we were still friends about it, but it was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we were gonna think about it more so, and then
Mm.
eventually Jeff was like, "Look, I want to put in all the legwork. You guys are just here to have fun." Which of course I then was like, "Look, no, I can't let you do that," and then I learned the rules, but initially that
Yep.
was how it was sold, and we finally were like, "Yeah, you know what? We'll try it out. Why not?" And
Yeah.
it's the best decision I think we've ever made. So,
Hmm. So when was that in the 6 years?
yeah, that was the 6 year point.
That was at 6 years
Yeah,
ago. Okay, so you've been friends for a while up until then,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's when this whole thing opened up. So what was your guys' first system and adventure?
Pathfinder.
Oh,
Yeah, and
nice.
Jeff made up an entire setting, a system. We were based out of a town called Anchor, which you may or may not have heard from our current podcast because Darflon is in fact Matt's character from our first podcast.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, I was a little curious. Like I have love for all the species presented in Starfinder.
Hmm.
So, but like whenever I hear someone like what they chose as their character, I always have like a little bit of like inner monologue with myself, or like a little head canon, like curious of why dwarf. Like
Yeah.
all the species have something to offer. Nothing against the dwarves at all. The dwarves in Starfinder lore, the established lore anyway, which you guys don't beholden yourselves to.
Hmm.
Uh, I still, when I think dwarf, I'm like, that's a choice. I would love. I am curious. So cool. That's awesome. He just he just migrated the stat block over
Yeah, I mean it's
or
there's some
converted.
spoilers. I don't know that it's been established that he is from. Anyway, so there have
Sure.
been
Sure. Yeah. 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 We
yeah
don't.
there have been a couple things that have been mentioned here and there of like that's from this, and we try to like not point stuff like that out because there were people not at that table that are at our current table. Um,
Oh, gotcha.
Tackett, he's a new addition. Joe, uh, well, I mean, none of them were in our initial game, I guess is the best way to put it.
Hmm. Sure.
So, um, we try not to point stuff out, and that's another thing I get texts about from Jeff, like, what would so and so do? And I'm like, been a while since. Anyway, um, these are so spoilers, but none of it has come up yet, but we'll see what happens.
Right on. I love
Yeah,
that.
but yeah, so yeah.
Gotcha. So that kind of like leads me to a question I ask all people that produce podcasts in these little interviews. So you just put out 48 today. How much of a backlog do you guys have currently just sitting waiting to be edited and or released?
We released 2 weeks behind, so the
Gotcha.
episode we record tonight will be released just shy of 2 weeks. It'll be released in the morning 2 weeks from now.
Nice. That's a healthy backlog. If cancellations,
Hmm.
something happens, that's good. I've had friends that have literally a year of backlog for them to edit and put out, and they are uh, loving it. But then I know some people, like, if I don't record this week, I don't have anything to put out this week, and that's a tightrope that I don't like anymore. That's part of the reason why these Hangouts started, was to help
Pat it, yeah.
pad out my backlog. So currently, uh, I've got 2 interviews and like 4 episodes of backlog, and I feel like that's good. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do too much. I don't like having too many things waiting. I realized last night that certain very old Pathfinder playtest interviews I never released. Sorry, Sean. But like with this one dropping, that's what made me think of it. Like, oh no, I need to get someone in here to talk about this class, because while actually before I make that transition, so is there anything else about your show you'd like to talk about? Because I'm a super big fan. I want everyone to go listen to it. It's so much fun. I want to trade inside jokes with other people. Um, you release weekly, so that's good. So but still, over 100 hours of backlog. That feels very good
Yeah.
for me as a completionist.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're probably somewhere around 150 ish, because
Wow.
they're about 3 hours. But no, I mean, just the only thing I would want to say is we are evil. We do
Mm-hmm.
some evil things. We try not to be uh, murder hobo evil with it or anything like that. There are some things that have happened that I, as a person, don't love,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I hate to use the phrase, it's what my character would do, but
Yeah.
it is a thing with evil characters if you're going to play the character and not just play the
Mm-hmm.
game. Uh,
Exactly.
so just a
And
forewarning, like there are a couple things that
yeah.
I, as a person, don't love, but it is what it is.
Yep. And like in defense of some of those things, like some of them are indefensible, uh, but also like it's like you're skirting this line of like I'm being true to the performance. So like I'm not pulling, like I say I. So the players aren't pulling punches. Like, no, I shouldn't do that. This is a podcast. Like, no, I'm gonna we're gonna double down on this action. We are going to, like, and it doesn't sound like there's any sort of quibbling over it either. Like,
Hmm.
you're presented with a scenario, your characters will act, they will act true to that character. Like, there's no like weird waffling that I personally would probably do if it was me trying to be evil for a podcast. I know myself well enough to be like, I would just constantly be looking over my shoulder, like, am I going to do
Yeah.
this? There's none of that. And I don't know how much of that is in edit, but like, you're all true to the characters and true to the moment, which is while not sunshine and rainbows, it is authentic, which has to carry some
Yeah.
weight.
I mean, we not you brought up editing, so I'll mention on it a little bit. We don't edit
Yeah.
much of our podcasts. In the beginning, we were more strongly edited, but after playing it for a while and whatnot, we've almost let go of editing. We still edit our episodes. You know, we can't publish a raw audio and pretend it's good,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
it's very minor editing,
Hmm.
and so you're getting pretty much raw,
Right
as
on.
for better or
That's
for
awesome.
worse. So, and I mean,
Yeah.
if we do something and it offends someone and they stop listening, I respect that. I understand. Um,
Yeah.
but well, we try to have fun, and that's really all there is to it.
Yep. Excellent. So yeah, once again, check them out. Sinister Shenanigans in Space. Follow them on Twitter, though their social media isn't as active as I would love to. Like, I retweet basically everything I see, but social media isn't for everyone, and I don't fault anyone like for that. But follow them on Twitter. Maybe if you start flooding their mentions and notifications, they'll share a little bit some of the art like you've shared with me
Yeah,
privately.
yeah.
I love. Uh, so follow them on Twitter at Crits and Company for some shenanigans. Okay, see, part of like I use the word shenanigans in my daily vernacular. But when I use it with you, it feels like I'm pandering. But I promise this is just how I
No, you're
talk.
good.
And one of the things that I really do like that you do, whoever does the Twitter does is they have out of context collages, and you look at it like none of this makes sense, and then I look at it after listening to an episode, and I just my face goes into my hand. I'm like, oh my god, that's what that was,
Yeah.
and it's great.
Yeah, there are some podcasts that'll do like snippets in the beginning of what's going to happen in that episode. And I mean,
Hmm.
I appreciate it. I like it, but I also don't want the spoilers. And the picture is a
Yeah.
good you'll never realize it until you realize it. And then you're like, "Oh,
No,
that
certain recent episodes, I'm like, I saw it, and I'm like, I'm going to open that image in a new tab.
oh yeah.
That way, when I finish the episode, I can look at it and then just like, oh, it's so good, very very well done, very good, like steady hand on like kind of the creative process. Like we're gonna give a little, but like you said, like you don't want to give stuff away.
Mhm.
It doesn't give it away at all. So I very much appreciate the effort given
Yeah,
there.
I don't make those,
So
so I will pass the word along."
okay, perfect, love it. So yeah, all that to say, Cam's podcast. He's very much the rules guy. We're both. You're more active than I am. I'm just not very conversational, but I lurk on the quote unquote official Starfinder Discord server. And I feel like that's where I found you, discovered your. I mean, I had to have been. It wasn't Twitter, but
How dare you? Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, you found us on there.
yeah. So yeah. So you got to chatting, you'd post. You would mention like, oh, on my podcast, I'm like, must have, give now, give info, and so you're a constant force of people ask questions. You give a even when the questions aren't polite or in good faith given. You're very steady. Like, well, here's this,
Mhm.
but then talk to your GM. Like,
Oh yeah.
so that's kind of we've developed a that's how we were introduced. That's how we got to knowing each other, and so that's why I wanted you here to talk about this playtest class, the Evolutionist. I guess I should probably have that up.
Yeah, the evolutionist. First comments are going to be the flavor on this is fantastic.
Hmm.
If you do nothing else, go home and read the flavor on this class.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, yeah. So the playtest just went out this past week. Something, just a little side note for me is when the precog and nanosite and the mech playtests went out, there was just a wildfire going off. Like everyone was talking about them. Everyone was theory crafting. Everyone was. Some people were thumbing their nose at it, as nerds will. But then when the Evolutionist dropped, I've noticed just personally there's not been as much fervor, and I kind of want to stir that up just for my own benefit. So this conversation is kind of why I'm pushing this convo in this interview to be released as soon as possible. But yeah, you want to give us a little bit of the background flavor of the Evolutionist?
Yeah. So evolutionist, it's about evolving, not just augmenting yourself, because that's kind of a thing in the game already, augmentations,
Mm-hmm.
but evolving, adapting to your end goal and to the situation. And some of the flavor is you transform yourself into a powerful being better suited to achieving your goals, a ferocious chimera, an undead scion, a cybernetic paragon, or anything in between. Stuff like that. And the you are adaptable, unadaptable combatant who forges your destiny in flesh, bone, or steel. It's a great class. It sounds fantastic, and a lot of its mechanics are fantastic as well. I mean, as with every
Mhm.
playtest, there are things people don't love, but yeah, the class itself is. I'm happy. I'm happy for it, and I'm pumped to see where it goes.
Yeah. So a little bit of the mechanics behind it. This is a strength or dex based class. We when we kind of like we're spitballing ideas on this conversation. The like it's kind of a martial
Mhm.
class. It's you speak a little better on the mechanics, so you want to speak a little more about like what this class will offer as far as what a player, if they're wanting to play test this, have this in their game, what is it that what kind of a player would want to go for
Yeah,
this?
yeah. What kind of role would fill at the table?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'll go through and mention some of their big things right quick, and I mean we can dive into them more
Sure.
in a bit. But
Yeah.
the one of the core features of the class is its adaptive strike, and you have like a natural weapon like sharp teeth, a club-like tail, fiery wings. So again, flavor is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um, and then you've got the evolution pool, which is kind of the resource the class manages through its day to day or round by round, I guess more technically. And then you've got the niche, which is essentially your end goal as an evolutionist. Are you trying to become a lich? Are you trying to become a paragon of magic? Are you trying to become a robot? So it's really cool stuff. And then the class has its adaptations, which are it's every couple levels you can pick something new type of thing. And so the class it also comes with a skill focus, the evolutionary focus. Sorry, the skill boost and flexible skill are the sort of skill focus the class gets, which most classes have something to that effect. Um, and so the class is it's almost in an odd position if you look at it mechanically, because the BAB, the base attack bonus on the class, is a three-quarter BAB class, so it's not quite up there with a soldier. It's more in the skill monkey camp with the
Sure.
lower BAB and the more good save situation. But then when you look at it's like skill ranks per level, you only start with 4 plus your intelligence. So once you get to the level where you start getting flexible skill and whatnot, you can eventually get more skill ranks. But at first, it's kind of it wants to be a marshal and it wants to be the skill guy, but it's not quite there for either yet. So it's
Yeah.
kind of an odd spot, but I feel like
Now, do
what was that?
do you think this odd spot is actually could be considered like this is an opportunity spot? Like odd, yes, but also like this will fill to use the word in the thing. Would it fill a niche for like someone who doesn't want to commit to skill monkey versus combatant?
I think when it comes out officially, yes. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, it's kind of lacking on the out of combat uses. I mean, it does have its skill bonus, flexible skill stuff, so it does kind of have a
Mm-hmm.
little bit going for it. But the out of combat potential of the class is a little less than I would like to see from that. That I'm not quite a skill monkey because I mean, if you look at an operative, that is I do every skill, or
Yes.
or you have like the soldier, which is I smash. It's
Yep.
it needs just a little bit more on the skill side. I feel like, and I think it would nail the niche. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I did have a note. So one of the first of these Hex Grid Hangouts I did was with the GM for the Space Boys podcast, Chase. He was kind of feeling people out about this, and he writes in his Discord server. Also, he's loving the drawbacks. A little worried about the three quarters BAB and the need to spend EP to bring it up. It feels like the other abilities may not give it enough spunk to make up for the fact that it feels like it's slightly less damaging and lower to hit than a Solarian. So you kind of touched on the three quarters BAB and the EP is its own thing that we can get into. Um, but partly I wanted to just give him a shout out and let him know that I did shout him out.
Yeah.
But uh, you know, so I guess a little tiny bit of background on me. Like I brought you in because you're great to chat with. You're very knowledgeable, especially around mechanics and rules. I'm not very rules mechanics minded. I kind of trust Paizo's stat blocks and make my tweaks where I feel I can make them punchier, or if I want a
Yeah.
flavor is kind of the way I approach it. So like when I look at this thing, I look at the flavor and I kind of almost turn a blind eye to the mechanics, the actual like raw data, the numbers involved, the graphs that I'm sure nerds will be making about where it falls as far as damage output. Which, fair play to them. We all enjoy this hobby in our own way. But when I look at this, I see yet another way to make and because everyone not everyone, because it's frequently asked for, I feel like this would be a cool version of a sci-fi monk class.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the adaptive strike, fiery wings, porcupine quills. Like you've got a lot of
Yeah.
natural weapon options. It could very easily do a monk very well, I feel like. So yeah, and then Chris, right?
Yep.
Chase,
Chase.
sorry. Yeah, what Chase said about uh, his initial thoughts and whatnot. I will preface, well, I should have prefaced earlier, but I will preface this conversation with I have not got to playtest one of these.
Yep.
So anything I say, please take with a grain of salt. Uh, Theory is great, but please playtest. So what he brings up,
Please play test and then let us know what you think,
yeah,
because I would love to hear, because I fully intend to be making at least one of these in the coming weeks. So we have about a month of the official playtest being open. But yeah, if you play this and find our following thoughts to be woefully inadequate, I love being told I'm
right,
wrong.
right,
That's why I have Sean in my Sean in my party. Uh,
right. Please let me know.
so yeah.
Yeah, but no, his initial assessment is, from what I'm seeing, it's pretty accurate. There's a lot of the EP pool. You want to build it, but you want to spend it for these cool effects. And there's definitely a give and a take to the class in general with the drawbacks and the benefits that you get for building your pool and whatnot. And it's a extremely flavorful class. I cannot stress that enough, because
Mm-hmm.
just suffering a drawback in exchange for your instinct, it's got a really cool feel to it. But I do feel the EP situation could be a little more refined. That's mostly what
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the evolution point
Mm-hmm.
pool. So at first level, you can have a maximum of 5 EP. This increases as you level up,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. And you maintain it as you gain it. Your body and mind increasingly takes on a supernatural aspect. Various flavorful ways this manifests itself, and that's entirely up to the player. You're given by leveling this up and living as this character, you're given 3 effects, 2 of which will be beneficial and 1
Mm-hmm.
drawback. Your drawback and one of your instincts are based on your niche, which we can get into. Uh, but each of these evolution points that you uh, gain is so you gain them just by having them, but by using them, you want to run down a couple of your favorite ways of using EP.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you gain them just from existing, basically, in a stressful situation, which,
Yeah.
yeah, you gain them from existing. Basically, each round you gain one up to your maximum, and then you have various ways of spending them. So probably the biggest one that most people are going to use is the you can spend 1 EP to make attacks as if your BAB from your evolutionist levels were equal to your evolutionist level. monk, because that's going to up your combat potential a lot, and that lets the class fill that martial role a lot better. But in doing so, you essentially keep your EP pool at 0, because round 1 you gain 1, round 1 you spend 1 type of thing. So
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's an interesting dynamic to have established, but some of the cooler ways to spend EP are like when you hit level 18 and you pick the fission form adaptation, you can clone yourself and run around with 2 of you beating people up. So stuff like that is super cool, super flavorful.
Yeah.
Like you can throw an area of effect and explode a hail of projectiles in a 20-foot cone or something like that if you choose to spend the EP for that as well. But there's a lot of cool options for spending it and whatnot. And if you build it, though, you also gain like resistances or immunity, stuff like that, a critical effect, and then obviously your drawbacks.
Yeah. Which we were kind of chatting a little bit about them before, about how like if you're there's a magic one where it's very good, you know, you're leaning more into the magic side of your build. If you run into non-magical foes, you're going to be taking a massive, not, I say massive, you take a sizable amount of extra damage because they aren't magical. And I could see, like, you know, I like to theory craft, like, a party run up in this scenario. This is how, you know, this class and this class will handle it. Like this one, it's in the name, the Evolutionist. The adaptations are all there, so it's fun to see how it would manifest in various different scenarios.
Yeah, Eldritch, the magic one, it's one of the most flavorful in my opinion. It's if you've got a caster friend, they'll love you because you can boost DCs, boost caster level for spell resistance. There's a lot of cool things you can do. And then the drawback, as you mentioned, is when you get hit by that paper sword or whatever mundane threat, it hurts.
Yep.
So.
Excellent. So, running through some of the other abilities you get, you get the adaptive strike at 1. You get your skills. You get your EP, and that goes up. You hit level 2, you get an augmented form, and this is where we were talking earlier how augmentations kind of play into this. Because of your focus on adapting your body through science, magic, etc., you're able to reduce the cost of augmentations associated with whatever niche you choose by 10%, which I know some players go hog wild with augmentations, and I know some players that literally, not literally, they turn their nose up when you hear the word necrograft. They're like, oh, I would never put a dead thing in my body.
Yep.
And yet just a quick editorial, like when people get knee surgery, hip surgery, they sometimes get cadaver material.
Yeah.
So like it's not as gross as everyone makes it seem. I mean, if you have a rotten hand that you use to enervate people, yes, that's quite gross. But
right.
Augmentations in this aspect, you hit level 2, you get a 10% discount depending on how your GM does loot and stuff. Like this could be a great way just to customize it even further.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do we have here? Evolutionist adaptation at 2nd level as well. You gain your body just adjusts to the abilities. You choose them, based on your build, based on whatever niche you choose. But then the fulcrum you mentioned, that talisman, kind of a bit like a spell focus. It kind of feels like to me, like it's this thing that helps you channel your supernatural energies into your adaptive strikes and stuff like that. And you mentioned Lich earlier, like that full on sounds like we're getting phylacteries, guys. Yeah. Everyone get ready for this.
Yeah. The fulcrum is like a turkey baster full of flavor, basically.
Yes. Yep. Which you can also put fusions in this thing, and I know we talked about how this is a little bit of a martially
Hmm.
class. You can't. What was the phrase you used? You can't put a fusion in your hands, or you can't apply a fusion to your hands. And in this way, having this fulcrum is what will let you be able to have. I think the example you used was Ghost
Yeah,
Killer.
yeah, you can't punch a ghost. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but with a fulcrum, you can do it. So
Yep.
it's great. The class needs it. Natural weapon builds in general need something like this. So it's a good call on Paizo to add it.
Yep. Looking more at some of the stuff they have, you get weapon spec, of course, as always. One feature that I really enjoy, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing players of mine and other podcasts use it, is the fifth ability evolution drain. You want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, evolution drain. Again, it's another flavor injection. You leach genetic material and raw evolutionary potential. It's one of your other ways to build your EP pool. You can essentially choose to steal it, and you
Mm-hmm.
punch someone and they don't feel so good after because you stole some of their genetic material. Or you've got the option of if you hit, you can, as a reaction, gain that EP as well, but that's a little more limited, so it's not like exploited as much. But evolution drain is definitely one of the two ways so far to build your EP pool.
And it kind of like that sapping ability you're doing, like that not strictly vampire, but like something that drains
Yeah,
the in the stat the condition that it provides as well, huge. And at well, you get that at 5. So like when you hit mid level, like this is what this class is going to be doing to help tweak things instead of just being a marshal, instead of doing any sort of battlefield control. Like this is how they can help out the party hit better by applying these effects, which,
right.
as we all know, Starfinder, one of the few ways to really die in this is to be unfortunate enough to contract or attract a condition that lasts for a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Let's see here. So there's focuses you can have, and we kind of talked a little bit about augmentations where like you're focusing within. So okay, so I guess before we talk about the focus, we should talk about what niches are and what they provide and what they do. So you mentioned the Eldritch
Hmm.
one. Uh, you intend to gradually metamorphose into a fantastical or extraplanar being. Magical energy flows through your veins and deflects spells, yet the more you embrace this influence, the more toxic the mundane world becomes, which, as I read that out loud, it feels corruption-y for Starfinder players that are familiar with the corruption rules. Like you're really like locking in on like, yeah, in this science fantasy world, I'm focusing more on the magic. You go up against a troop of mundane grunt soldiers with mundane tactical pistols.
Yeah,
You're going to be taking that drawback where you'll be taking additional damage equal to half of your evolution plus however much evolution points you're storing. So to your point earlier about how you want to gain it but you also want to spend it, because the more you have, like this drawback is going to create a real give and take on how you want to play. And again, there's more customization of how you want to play it, how your character would risk it
yeah,
to
yeah.
have it. Other niches. Once you want to talk about the mechanized one.
Yeah, so mechanized, the augmentation type is cybernetics. You essentially gain a limited form of hardness as your instinct. And the drawback is whenever you take damage that does not hit your hardness, because it's a limited form, it hits you
Mm-hmm.
harder. Similar to the
Yep.
mundane with the eldritch. So sort of your robot weakness is what you get to pick it, but you're going to take a little bit more damage from it. And there are a number of benefits or side effects to becoming more robotic. And some
Hmm.
of the things you get are when someone hits you, you can vent plasma at them, and that's
Yeah.
wildly flavorful. You
Uh,
can reboot yourself as you level up, essentially, and uh, just become better type of stuff until you eventually become a construct. And that's
yep.
the end goal there. So if you're playing an android and you're mechanized evolutionist, you're trying to purge the organic side. And the flavor is
Which
phenomenal there.
yeah, the chance for role play, all of this is like these play tests are here are the mechanics, here are the abilities, break them, twist them, shatter them. Let us see what you do. But like I've been doing this. You've been doing it. We've all been doing this long enough for. And I'm just a little surprised that I'm now at this point where like I'm reading between the lines a bit. Like what you said about purging, you mentioned it, the purging the organic side of you, like the role play of that, the your players, your party members start seeing like your forearm no longer is flesh. It's a panel. Like you have a 3PO leg. One week they roll up, you go out for a mission, and you know what they've got a flat affect all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and you're like, you right? Yeah. So I could just see so much cool ways of flavoring this change, and it's just really dramatic for me to follow along with. Uh, Next one, then you can read the final one, the sepulchral, sepulchral, sep, sepulchral, whatever. Uh, Undead. You're trying to gain undead immortality on your own terms. While unliving energy strengthens your body and grants you the supernatural power over life and death, you also develop certain unnatural hungers that again more of the kind of leads into kind of a corruption vibe. If you don't keep this in check, your transformation while you're trying to seek, very much lich, while you're trying to seek this perfect form, it may tear your body apart. And this is where you'll be focusing on getting necrographs. This is where your mysticism will be applied. Your instincts are uh, you'll do increased damage to a living creature, and that stacks. So if you're playing a campaign where you're not fighting a lot of undead, you're gonna just be great. And I have this vision of this kind of dark, when you hear undead, you think ooh evil baddie probably,
Hmm.
but Starfinders, Eoxians, we got a whole planet full of undead people there, and
Right.
they're while the lore says there's a uncomfortable peace at the moment, like it's fun to now be able to like lean into that a bit more, because that's something undead, as I've seen it in my few years of a Starfinder experience, it's been like undead equals bad. Oh, I worship God that hates undead, so any undead encounter is going to be just a free for all massacre. But with that undead drawback, once per round, while you have at least one evolution point, and you reduce a living creature to 0 HP with your adaptive striking, you must attempt a will save. If you fail, you must take your first action of your next turn to either make another attack or take a move action. So like it's kind of like you get this bloodlust, as they mentioned,
Yeah.
where and like that just like it just I've been playing a lot of Elder Scrolls again because I like comfortable things, and it just like makes me think of those undead barrows you run into, the liches, the wow, all the different terms for liches I just completely space, even though I fight them
All
on
the
the
time.
regular.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, so like another fun step or ability would be called Grim Harvest. As a reaction, when you either reduce a significant enemy to 0 or a significant enemy and wow, enemy really Don. You can harvest, where you're like absorbing even more evolution points because you're feasting in whatever way you want to imagine it. But like I imagine them either energy beam sapping it, or I could see people flavoring it as like, no, I'm going to chow down on this
Yeah,
security guard we took down.
yeah, yeah.
Like I know people who are going to really dig into some of the
Darker.
stereotypes and
Yeah,
tropes. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh, and then you get your niche metamorphosis at 20. You become undead and you are straight up a lich.
yeah.
And I'm so looking forward to seeing adventures like that. Maybe not playing in them, but like observing through a podcast form. Definitely want to hear those stories.
Yeah, it's about as close to a corruption as you can get without an actual corruption, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Do you want to hit us with that final one?
Yeah. So vital. You are a riot of biological potential. So if you're an android, you're purging the machine, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Rampant life energy heals your wounds. This one, the augmentation type is biotech, and the instinct is that you regain more hit points and stamina whenever you're healed. The drawback, though, is that you take a penalty on your will saves and can't use any abilities that require patience or concentration, such as spellcasting. So it's kind
Yep.
of an odd dynamic that it presents where you're almost raging, but you also
Oh
heal
yeah.
better. So it's an interesting drawback that they chose for the life one, but
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see how they play out. Which I mean, spellcasting as a evolutionist isn't a concern, but it could be if you multi-classed or chose some really unique build options.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so biotic invigoration, the first level ability, is you can literally recharge yourself. You can just heal, which is a great thing to be able to do as a swift action uh, to boost yourself back up and stay in the fight. And then you can later take a guarded step as a swift action, or even more than a guarded step, until you eventually become your choice of aberration, monstrous humanoid, ooze, or plant. And you
Yep.
get number of benefits like that from that, like immunity to crits. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that. I will say on the vital one, the niche metamorphosis, you gain immunity to critical hit effects, and you reduce any damage you take from critical hits by an amount equal to 20 plus your key ability score modifier. You still take the critical hit damage, you just take a lot less. You aren't immune to
Yeah.
critical hits, just the effects. It's a distinction worth
I
mentioning.
Yes. I can. Yeah. As you said that, like I can see. I'm probably guilty of it. I could see that one getting ignored. Just just read past it and forget it. But as you were talking about it, like I kept saying Lich. We both have mentioned Liches with the sepulchral stuff. It's very iconic.
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking about Vital, my first thought was going Wolverine in X
Yeah,
Men.
yeah,
Like you got advanced healing, your reflexes are better. So like I'm very much looking forward to seeing unexpected or maybe less less easy uh, thematics that people choose to do it. But yeah, that one sounds a lot of fun. I can imagine. I've made a couple like magic lists hunter type people, and I could see like this being a great
yeah.
option for that kind of
Yeah,
build.
Wolverine is about as perfect a fit for this as you could come up with. Yeah,
Yeah.
you heal better and you get a little ragey.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay. I don't want to go through and list all the adaptations because there are a lot of
yeah,
them. What I would like to do about talking about them, though, is something you kind of mentioned in our conversation before about the economy, the use of the evolution points, and how this balancing act will dictate how effective it is in action.
Right. So probably my biggest concern with the class is the evolution pool, the EP. Also because it shares the abbreviation that entropy points uses, EP. So
Yeah.
I'd love to see a rebranding, but we'll see what happens. Uh, but the pool is almost designed for you to just build it and sit on it, because you gain all these benefits as you have more, and theoretically you've accepted the drawback. But then there's also the paradigm there of you want to spend them. So spending EP is how you get full BAB, or uh, you can quick draw if you spend EP, stuff like that. And then when you get down to the adaptations at level 2 and further, you can essentially gain new ways to spend EP or ways to augment when you do spend EP. And this is where the class really, really shows a strange paradigm to me, an odd juxtaposition of wanting to conserve your EP but also wanting to spend it. And that's the biggest thing that I feel like needs to be ironed out. uh, the first thing that pops to my head is like a grit pool style from Pathfinder First Edition. It starts full,
Yeah.
and you drain it, and then you have ways of regaining it. How that would actually turn out will depend. I mean, we'll see. I have my hopes, but I'm going to play test it before I implement any homebrew for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it might play great. It might just seem like on paper it's a problem. Um, because I mean, when you come down here to the adaptations, you have Dazzling Outburst, the first one, as a reaction when you spend 2 EP or more. So this is one that augments it. You can dazzle people around you if you spend 4 or more. Since the end of your last turn, you can blind someone. And then at level 2, if you look at your options for spending evolution points, they're either a reaction, like when you vent plasma as a mechanized evolutionist, or your option to spend 2 points would be to gain a climb speed, or a swim speed. So you're essentially, as a swift action, you become good at climbing, and then you blind everyone around you as your reaction. So
Yeah.
it's kind of an odd position to put the class in, and I mean there are a couple more adaptations that have similar uh, effects that I think might could use some work, because to only be able to use Dazzling Outburst if you want to swim is a little restrictive, but we'll see how it turns out. When you look through the adaptations, though, you see it's really a reactive class, almost trying to get as much of it as it can out of each action, which is something you and I have talked about a little bit before. It's really like we're at that point in the game where I'm going to use my swift action, I'm going to use my move action, I'm going to use my standard action. Like you're getting that
Yeah.
100% out of your turn. And
Yeah. And that's and I had that kind of thought
yeah,
about, we're enough years into the system now. The developers have seen how people play their characters, and there are I'm guilty of it. I've seen it. I've ran people with it where they have their standard, and if that doesn't go well, they feel like their entire turn is wasted.
right.
And this feels like a step towards revolutionizing,
Ooh,
evolutionizing move economy. Thank you.
yeah,
Where you're using, and I don't see them doing a 2E Starfinder anytime soon. I think it's way too early for
right.
that. But like little patch notes, if you will, of things you can do, like enhance the list, because I have a GM screen. I play all online, but I still refer back to it all the time because of all the different actions you can do. The list is quite narrow for swifts and moves. So this feels like I mentioned earlier how it's a doesn't want to be combatant, doesn't want to be skill monkey. Like this is filling that niche, and this is once again like filling in another area of the game that could be I don't want to use the word evolved, but it's the perfect word there.
Yeah, it really is.
So yeah, the adaptations they all and they just get cooler as you level up. Obviously, the stuff you do. You mentioned fission form. I very much want to see. I want to see that. Looking at some of the 14th level stuff, it's like it's all like I want to just lock myself in a cabin for a month with like three other people and then just hammer out playing this. And I feel like that's probably what the devs do in their own
Mm-hmm.
way. But it's just so many cool abilities, and I want to do them all. And then, like as a player, I think you talk about the evolution point, the back and forth is like I want to do my abilities, but I need to hold them. And when you think of the other classes that have certain resources, like Solarians, you know they're attuning each turn to do the cool stuff, but they got to use it real rapid fire things. Uh,
Right.
a little relatively quicker, I feel, than evolutionist might, unless you're a harvester that's going to be draining a lot of people. Like it's going to take you a little bit to gain these, and until you get to mid-level play, your combats may not see you get to use many options, which um, is a thing to consider. But then you think of the Vanguard. You know, basically anything they do is in line towards gaining a point or
Right.
more, depending on what happens. You think about the keystone abilities of the classes, operatives with their trick attack, the exocortex and drones of the mechanic. Like this one feels like it's going to require a little bit more patience to see you kind of shine. I feel almost, but you know what you can do is great. I just really want to get in and feel how this plays, basically. So again, yeah, there's going to be a disclaimer probably at the beginning of the episode as well about like we're just a couple of nerds talking about a thing we really really like, but we have zero practical application. I haven't
Right.
even done a Google Doc of a character yet, but
Right. I haven't had a chance to sit down and play one. This is just what I'm
yeah,
reading and seeing. Yeah, I mean, you can crunch
okay.
numbers too, you know, like I could be
Uh,
wrong.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, but it looks like you can match the damage of a combat focused soldier with an evolutionist if you know, pick the right niche, you pick the right focus, you know, combat focus, sepulchral niche, and you're hitting with your KC attacks, dealing 8d10 per hit 3 times, plus
Yes.
5d10 from the combat focus, plus all the bonus damage for hitting a living creature from being undead. And you can really, I think the math is in favor of the evolutionist for highest damage right now, but
Hmm.
that's it's a little interesting because it's the 3/4 BAB class, so you would think it wouldn't be, but and I need to run the numbers again. Don't quote me. It's been a minute
Hmm.
since I've seen them run because I didn't run them
Yeah.
the first time myself. But it's a class that it can hit. So it's
Yep.
an odd spot kind of to be a martial, but also a skill monkey. But I
Yep.
hope that it fills the niche very well, and so I'm pumped to see what comes out of this class.
Same here. Yeah, and thinking of some of the recent playtests, the precog class was, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole on the outcry that class brought when people saw Dex as a casting stat. People just didn't see anything else. They couldn't see the forest for the
Yeah.
trees because they saw Dex, they saw casting, and they saw red.
Hmm.
Um, but with this, I hope that our conversation and others, when they actually play it, you know, you see the 3/4 BAB and you don't just dismiss it out of hand because the flavor and I feel like the adaptation effects kind of make up for it. Like I said earlier, status conditions, diseases, the effects are every much as important in this as sheer numbers. Like you know, you don't get those big numbers possibly, but it sounds like you might still even get those big
Yeah, in
numbers.
the right
But like
bill.
even if yeah, even if you aren't optimized, you're still being a very much a solid team solid party member as far as team cohesion.
Yeah, yeah. I think I want to see where it goes. I think it'll
Mm-hmm.
work. Um, the precog cry outs for dex casting, I get, but if you look at it, that's not the worst part of the class. So you guys should have play tested it and then seen what the problem was and then cried out. But we'll
Yeah.
see how that one shakes out in a couple months.
Yeah, November. Yep.
Yeah.
We're getting Nanosite at the end of this month. November will be precog, and then this one is in an as yet unnamed hardcover rulebook.
Right. And if you tried to math it out, it looks like it'll be about when we get the nanosite, but next year. So roughly a year
Yeah.
and some change from now. Uh,
Plenty of time to show Paizo that 3/4 BAB isn't so bad,
right, right. Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, I'm fine with it staying 3/4. I'd like it to have some more skill options, more out of combat
Mm-hmm.
picks.
Yeah.
Like if I'm growing wings, I should be able to fly over the trap, but we'll see what happens, you
Yep.
know?
Uh-huh. No, that's good. I like it. So, yeah, I think that's it. So, final thoughts. I feel like they're shared between us. Flavorful cannot be understated. No, they cannot be
Yeah.
overstated. It is such good flavor, such good variety for any sort of build you want to make that is going to be unarmed strikey.
Right.
And then we both want to see like it fleshed out in non-combat because despite certain recent ruminations like this game we play and produce shows for, while the role play and the stories is my biggest thing, this is still largely a combat game,
Right.
and we're just gonna have to like
Right. Right.
this is why we get these kind of playtests. We get the combat portion
Yeah.
because this is what the people wanted. This is what the laymen, the entry people, not just them, but like when you want to showcase a system, it's not like, hey, here's all the cool RP and lore. We can dump all the RP and lore, but like when you show them these abilities, this is where these kind of systems you can't do. I mean, you can do similar things, but this flavor in this system, this is unlike much of what we've seen already.
Yeah. Yeah. Starfinder flavor, lore, everything is some of the most phenomenal I've ever seen. It's the reason I love the system. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, this is a combat-oriented game, and combat is a big thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see more, yeah, skill-based stuff. The flavor of this class is it does not let you down. But we'll see how it shakes out, and I'm happy to see what comes from this, and I think they'll do it right. So yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. So that was our show. Everyone, please go like, follow, subscribe, leave reviews, listen to Sinister Shenanigans in Space wherever you get podcasts. Cam and the the team uh, are putting out a great story, great combat, great use. Like we talked about skills, your party is excellent at utilizing every aspect of their classes in all aspects of the game. So like if you want to like really dig into this show, it deserves a whole lot more love than I'm currently seeing it get.
thank you.
And by Triune, I'll make it happen. So yeah, Cam, thank you so much for coming here and hanging out with me, and looking forward to uh, chatting, playing, and just discussing Starfinder again real soon.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, man.